Hi everyone, it's Gigabeef here, and today I'm going to be answering some interesting questions from you, the community members. And some of these are going to be from my actual videos, and some of them are coming from the community post that I put up asking people if there was anything they wanted answered, and I got a lot of responses, so I'm going to get through as many as I can. This video, I'm going to go very, very quickly, so let's get started. Okay, so the first one is from It's Cryptic on my early budget loadouts video. He said, did you state that you should use the AKMS as a replacement of the SKS? And my answer is basically yes. You have the ability to get full auto. It has a better recoil profile. It's got 123 recoil versus 155 base. They're not necessarily comparable, but it gives you an idea. For about the same price. The AKMS-N come out in the same scopes naturally as the SKS, has the same bullets, the mags for the AKs are cheaper, and the 30 rounds are on Prapor now, and you don't lose a bullet every time you reload, and you get cheap mods that can take you from 123 recoil down to 105. So, in my opinion, I much prefer using the AKMS. Question 2 from Chatty Wampa Studios. How viable are shotguns for low-level players? Well, for low-level players, I think you just use any of the shotguns and aim for the head. Basically, without a face shield, players die in one hit if you take any pellet of buckshot to the head, and so it can be good, but you have to hit your shot. So I'm notoriously bad at it, so I don't usually do it, but if you're just going pure budget, you can just take one in at stock, and you can kill anybody that's not wearing a face shield with it, so it can be good if that's what you're after. Question 3 from MS3300. Is PACA worth it at all? I personally think yes at the beginning of the wipe. It prevents you from getting killed by scavs, it stops buckshot pellets and a few low pistol rounds, and also, no one really takes it. So once you have it, you insure it, you're going to get it back over and over again. I'd rather wear it than nothing. I still think it's worth it just because it comes back so often in insurance. Question 4 from Ghetto Insane. Will there be a .338 bolt action? I was actually interested with the Mark 18 edition because I thought that was going to be a bolt action weapon. I was surprised when it was semi, to be honest, but I think it doesn't interfere with the Tarkov shooter questline. That's probably the reason why they didn't add it. But if you look on the wiki, there are actually two weapons that are listed as being confirmed, the DSR-1 and the Orsis SVLK. Both of these are supposed to be chambered in 338 Lapua, and so we will see when these get added to the game. But to be honest, with the addition of the Mark 18, I don't really know why you'd use these. Just my opinion. Question number 5 from Sterling. What is your guilty pleasure gun or loadout? Well, I've been through a few iterations of this. To be honest, I'm a filthy min-maxer, as you probably know by now. It used to be AKMS with a drum filled with PS and 5 BP on the top for added spice. That was my original. Then it was the Hunter, which was just kind of my guilty loader. Even though I had like a ton of money, I used to just love running the Hunter with maybe a couple of M61s in it, but usually M80s. These days, it probably is the SVD firing SNB, with or without mods, doesn't really matter. I mean, the SVD is not really meta, but the M61 sluggers are better overall, but I just find the gun really satisfying and I love using it. I think it's great fun, and the intimidation that it brings even at stock is something that's awesome, and it just sounds amazing to me. Question number 6. Should a rat bring a big backpack or a small one? Same thing with the rig. I say big if you're going for looting. Rat play means high survival rate, means no PvP, means less likely to lose it. Many of the decent bags cost about 40,000, which is the same as one middling item or 4 pieces of food, just to put it in context. The Pilgrim, people really hate it because it's purple, but it is actually the same size as an Attack 2. Alternative, there's a couple of bags with separate slots like the Paratus bag. It's hard to extract with other people's kits using that bag, so it can be good value because it's hard for people to take it if you're just taking 2x2s, 2x1s, and 1x1 items. Rigs, choose something cheap with lots of 2 slots for gas analyzers, pressure gauges, that kind of thing. I think the Azimuth is a good choice as it on scavs a lot, so it's only about 20,000 now, plus you'll get it back often as well. So I had quite a few questions on my customs video about the armor, with Jumble Stiltskin saying this is probably a stupid question, can you not shoot the armor yourself while it's still on the boy you killed? And this is about damaging the Zabralo so that it's lower than 50% HP. I had the same thing from Daniel W. There was other people, but I was curious about this. A friend and I just formed factories so we could shoot each other to get ours. Could you not just drop the armor on the floor and shoot it yourself, or do they only take damage when equipped on the person? Yes, it does indeed only take damage when it's equipped on a person, a scav. It has to be a living body that it's on. You can't just put it on the floor or put it on a dead body and shoot at it. It doesn't work that way. I think this does actually prevent griefing, so people can't just like grief the insurance of people that they've killed. But I imagine that probably wasn't the consideration. It's more like of a technical thing that it needs to be actually on a person, otherwise it doesn't make those calculations. That would be my guess anyway. Question 8 from Higalutu. He basically says, one thing I really struggle with getting used to is the hold breath mechanic. Got any tips on that? Do you use it with the ARs or only for sniping? Do you press hold breath every time you start shooting, or just use it if you're lining up a shot? I really only use this if I'm using a 4 times or higher routinely. I very rarely do it with red dots unless I'm trying to get a really precise shot at like a decent distance and I just haven't brought a long range scope. It's useful to steady the gun, but you've got to remember to turn it off when you're not using it. Otherwise, basically you can end up with your gun bouncing up and down with your PMC out of breath. So you just have to be a little bit careful about that. But I really only use it for long range. Next question from Wizata. He says that the fee comes from my pocket, not off the sales cash for the flea market, and it's handed back to me on sale. Does this mean if an item that I list doesn't sell, I could have to pay multiple listing fees? Yes, exactly. Basically, you just want to get your stuff sold. You don't want to be messing around, like putting stuff up way too high, because firstly, you lose the listing fee, and secondly, you also lose your flea market rating. So this can happen multiple times. Don't mess about. Get your stuff sold at a reasonable price. Question number 10, Sam Coyle asks, how does penetration through glass work? I tanked a 7.62 BP shot through glass earlier in an exfil and lived, but there was no concussion. My head was on 2 HP. This is a tough one, as testing is quite difficult to find, but what is known is that a bullet can be deflected on its way through a material, and also some damage is mitigated in the sort of similar way to armor in some ways, depending on the material too. So small trees can be penetrated, as well as the extract wall at gate 3, which is quite an interesting one. Well, it really lowers the damage of the rounds. You need 43% mitigation for a 7.62 round, either PS or BP, because they're basically the same damage, to deal 33 damage. And maybe what's happened is that there's been enough mitigation that it's hit you in the head. It's only dealt 33 damage, but because there's no helmet or there's no ricochet or anything, like the game's just not programmed to actually give you any concussion effects, because the game presumes that if you get hit by a bullet in the head, then you're probably going to die. So that might just be a programming oversight, to be honest, but I'm not 100% sure. It's very hard to test this kind of thing. So question 11, JMR asks, is it really worth using SMB over 7 and 1 in the SVD? The one hit kill to the chest is still pretty likely, even against level 5 or 6. I think this is a common misconception. I quite like the way 7 and 1 kills scavs and some low armor players in one hit, but against anyone armored, SMB is the way to go because of the damage mitigation on 7 and 1. It means that it won't one shot to the chest through 4+, and you really are better off using SMB because you want a guaranteed 2-shot kill rather than necessarily struggling through level 6, which can happen with the 7 and 1. Question 12, and this is a big one, so I'm going to fly through this one from Lewis, who says, is the highest pen round for each of the ammo types worth it? AP20 Slug, my favourite, but not everyone's. I like shooting thoraxes. Toz, no. KS23, no. Makarov, probably if you're shooting faces. TT, I never use this one. 7 and 31, yes, it's good with high fire rate. ACP-AP, yes, it's good, high damage as well. SP13, it's amazing for pistol round, yes. SS190, yes, it's the best round for the P90 in my opinion. APSX, yes, it's one of the best rounds in the game for PvP. 7 and 12, not really, it's fairly equal to SPP to be honest, and a bit more expensive. 366 AP, this is way better than the others, definitely yes. Igolnik, it's very similar to BS, but both together are better than BT, so kind of yes. SSA AP, no versus M995, I think M995 is better. AAC Blackout AP, yes, the other one is crap. MIA AP, not used this one enough, but it looks awesome. Otherwise, BP is necessary for PvP at this stage of the white versus PS, so kind of yes. M993, good for long-range sniping and shootable in heaven due to its speed. Otherwise, M61 is better overall. 7 and 37 is pointless overkill, use SMB, so no. The Pure Magnum AP, if you can afford it, one-shots everything to the thorax, including level 6, but it's 75 to 90,000 on the flea market per shot. So, if you can afford it, yes. Otherwise, no. Number 13, it's actually not a question, also from the same poster, it's just a story that I really like. It says, lucky that I can't imagine myself making double my rubles, but you make it look so easy, I can't make over 100k in one raid. I basically said, do some of the cash runs, you make over 100k in nearly every raid, it gets easier, I promise. He said, thanks for the tips, I started doing some cash runs, I made around 200,000, I might start running Shoreline. I think that's awesome, honestly, it's just one of my favourite things, just to see player development, seeing people get better at the game. Once you get the tools and the information that you need, you can actually win at this game. I just think this is a fantastic story, and I love it. Let's go to the next one. Warpig asks a big question here, how to get good and how to lose gear fear. This is a huge topic. Getting good is basically playing more, understanding all of the game mechanics. Live by the wiki, learn as much as you can in your downtime when you're not playing. Losing gear fear, in my opinion, is basically knowing when you can get the gear back, you lose your fear. You progress in the game, you level your traders, you get the hideout making you money, you find a loot run that makes you money, and you optimize your builds to lose less when you die. You scale up your gear as you build confidence, value penetration highly when it comes to ammo. You can budget the rest of your kit, but ammo really kills people and you kind of need to focus on that. As a guide, 545 BT is the bare minimum at this point in the wipe, and it'll still get you in trouble 50% of the time, so just be very careful with ammo and skimping on that. If you're really struggling with gear fear, try making 4 loadouts of the same thing that you can afford, so that you aren't precious about it when you die. Sometimes putting a new kit together stings more than the death, just having to piece it all from the flea market, so this way you can get back out there and only having to faff about buying stuff once every 4 raids. Question 15 is from 4D Printing saying, did you sell all your bitcoins before the nerf? For those who weren't following along, I was saving them up because I thought it was funny, and also it was a good experiment to see how much money was coming from them versus from other stuff. Spoiler alert, it was most of it. And basically, yes, I did. I sold 129 bitcoins at 767,000 rubles for 99 million rubles. So when people come in asking stream how I have so much money, that's basically the answer. Question number 16, Metal as Fork asks, good video. I got to ask, how did you come up with Gigabeef? It's not actually that exciting an answer to this. I was playing Shattered Galaxy back in the day. It was an old MMO RTS, which I really loved. And there was a guy on there called Gigabyte, and there was a in-joke at school going around at the time about beef, and I just combined the two together to Gigabeef, and it just stuck, and I've had it for a long time and never really wanted to change it. So that's that. The next set of questions are all about the future of Tarkov. Porgy asks, what are they going to do to make the game more optimized and run smoother? I think this is just happening over time. I mean, obviously I don't know personally, but the Unity engine update that they're doing should help, and that's coming in the next few patches. I think it got pushed from 0.11 to 0.12, so hopefully we'll see that soon. Jumble asks, will dynamic looting be a thing soon? Honestly, I'm not sure about this. You'd still need tiers of loot like high, medium, and low to incentivize players to go to different locations, but I think this will come later once more features of Tarkov are actually in. I don't think they're going to change the looting until much further down the line, personally. Drag asks, how can we get over our collective Stockholm syndrome and stop getting boned by BSG? The answer is you can't. Tarkov is pain. You can never escape. Next question. Okay, no, he did actually ask, how would you refine Krashd's ideas on how a wipe should play out in order to maximize balance and stave off the end game? So, refining Krashd's ideas, his ideas boil down to removing the Flea, time gating the traders into 4 stages throughout the wipe so that everyone accesses high-level traders at the same time, and removing raiders until stage 4 is open. I agree with him that the Flea should be limited in some ways. It bypasses the loot of Tarkov, enables endgame players to run meta kits every raid. The main difference between my view and Krashed is that I think the traders are also a problem, delivering too many endgame attachments to top players. So the Flea is sort of okay when items are rare, like thermals or AP ammo for 338. You can see that they just get really expensive, and when money's harder to come by, people can't just use them all the time. And so when Bitcoin is nerfed, that might actually have a good effect. What I would like personally is a hardcore mode with no fleet, no traders past about level 1-ish, just to see how that plays out, in tandem with new players that can play the existing game just as they are, and so it kind of splits the player base, but I think it would be good to have experienced players be able to try something that's harder and a bit different. Less radically for the existing game, I'd really like to see all of the high level attachments and armor and ammo removed from the traders completely and added as find in raid barters. This means you'd actually need to go and get those requirements in the world to trade in. It wouldn't need any player limits then, as your ability to buy these things would be limited for how many items that you could get, and it would reduce the idea of a meta because you'd be forced to use different things because you wouldn't be able to find enough of the items to just buy the same HK slick thing over and over again. But it's more organic because you get to choose what to look for. It's almost like player driven questing. So if you want to buy an M4, you have to go and get these particular items, you know, that kind of thing. Dimitri asks, should there be a meta? I think there'll always be optimal things to do in any game, but in the context of EST, I think this means not being able to take the best in slot stuff into every raid. It's okay that some things are better than others in the game, right? But it shouldn't be able to be used every time, which I think is fixed with some of the solutions we've talked about, and I think ultimately the game will look more like that than it does now. And on to the final question from Critic. What are your opinions on future Tarkov features? This is quite a big topic, so I'm just going to run down a few that are upcoming that we know about. ScavTalk, I think this is going to be an interesting test. It really depends on how it's implemented though, so it's kind of a we'll see. Weapon misfires, I like it. It would be cool if 100% durability guns were finding raid only and the stuff on the traders was like 60-70%, something like that, to kind of incentivize you to go out and get them. Inertia, yes, this is good. I think it will help adjust the meta of indoor fighting. It might make some of the desync and some of the networking problems not look quite as bad because people are going to be moving a little bit more slowly. VoIP, I think, is absolutely necessary given where they want to take the game. Karma with no VoIP, I just don't see that working at all, but we'll see. Plate carriers and hitbox changes, I think this will help to reduce the highest pan-only meta for rounds, but it might increase the perceived RNG as well, so I'm not sure if that would actually be quite good. Like, can you actually target the gap between the two plates, or are you just going to be randomly spraying full auto at a guy and the person who hits between the plates wins and the guy who doesn't? It does need to happen though, because it gives more choice to loadouts, which I think is interesting. You decide where you put the plates and how many you're going to put on. That should hopefully affect your weight and your speed, things like that. So I think that should be kind of cool. Offline co-op, yes, do it, put it in. It'll be fun. There's no downside here really, so it helps people introduce new players to the game. Let's get it done. And the final one, Arena, I think this would be kind of cool. You separate kind of the labs 24/7 people out that don't really want to play survival Tarkov and just want a PvP. It would have better networking as there's less features. You don't need to have every feature in the game. The one thing I think they need to be very, very careful about is if they make EOD people pay for it, I think that's going to make the community explode. So I think they need to think about that very, very carefully before they make that decision, to be honest with you. But we'll see what they do. So thanks everyone for all the questions. It's been really interesting going through and trying to give you a good answer. Hopefully it wasn't too quick and it was actually useful and interesting. It'll probably be a couple of months before I do another one of these, but I do think it's nice to answer some random questions that don't fit kind of into their own particular video, and also gives me some ideas of some other bigger topics to cover in later videos. So thanks again, appreciate all the questions, and I'll catch you later. Have a good one.